We are live here at the Voice of College Football, Missouri. Let me send this tweet. People hopefully piling. Incredible first couple minutes here. All right, folks, we are here. We are live. I'm excited to be back. It's another week. Audio's good. Let me copy the link. I'm sorry, because reasons, apparently, we can't leave our job until like 6 o'clock anymore. So I don't get home until 6:30. So, alrighty. Tweet is sent. We are live. Welcome back into the Voice of College Football. This is Missouri Tigers Live. This is episode 34. Can't believe I've been doing this for as long as I've been doing it. And I did Bama for a couple years there, but we didn't do quite what we do here. There is some stuff to talk about with Mizzou. They did have their media days, their media sessions before camp started today, guys. Like, we're getting there. We're getting there. We're so freaking close. It's hard not to be excited. Eli's contract was extended. You all saw that. Like, I don't have a ton of thoughts on that. Like, it just kind of needed to happen. He deserves every penny from Mizzou. Let's be fair. I had his contract details up, and then I just lost it. So why am I need a new job, man. I need a job that gets me home before 6:35. All right, so Eli's new contract. It's not surprising. He's 38-24 at Mizzou. That's pretty good. 21-5 the last 2 years, so he was 17-19 before that. But still, he is the program position. First 10-win, three 10-win seasons in a row for the first time ever. Sure, is there things he does that drives me nuts? Yes, but that's okay. I mean, what college football coach doesn't have things that drive you nuts? Unless it's literally Nick Saban. So good for Eli. I just wanted to touch on that briefly. You are listening to the Missouri Tigers Live on the Voice of College Football, family of networks, hosts of networks, however you want to put it. This is the Voice of College Football, man. If you've got a favorite team, odds are we've got a channel. And we're making new channels all the time. Every time I go in to set this stuff up, I'm always like, oh, yeah, when did Mississippi State get a channel? Like, that's awesome. I can't wait. Those guys, I'm sure the folks running that are going to do a wonderful job. There's a lot to talk about Mississippi State with year 2 under Jeff Lebby. We'll talk about Mississippi State a lot in a couple weeks when we preview them. But yeah, Eli gets the contract extension. Voice of College Football. What else did I want to talk about? Mizzou Media Days. The big story in Mizzou, day before camp, Mizzou has a big old talking. They love to talk. The main thing that stuck out to me, and this is not the only thing, we have to start with it. Quarterback. So I've been under the assumption, the people I talk to and the things I read and the people I see the assumption has always been that Bo is going to be this Mizzou starting quarterback. There was talk out of spring that Sam Horn had a really good spring practice, and that's good because he's coming off injury, and but Horn, he just hadn't really played. They bring in Bo. In reality, Bo hasn't played a lot. He played the one game against Wisconsin. He did a lot of short yardage stuff at Penn State, but he's not exactly proven. So they brought him in. Apparently, it's still competition. I think both guys, and maybe even Matt Zollers is going to get a chance. Sorry, my cat's being annoying. Before, in that Central Arkansas game to maybe make some plays. Drink said he's not out of it. Yeah, he said he's not out of it, but also kind of hinted like, yeah, he's out of it. Because he made basically saying like he'll need a really impressive camp. Speaking of Sam Horn, he did sign. He was a draft pick by the Los Angeles Dodgers. He did sign it, so he can't play college baseball. But he's done with college baseball, so he could play college football this year and next year. I doubt he plays college football next year. But you have to do what's best for your team this year. So Sam Horn will be playing in the professional baseball. And good for him, man. Like, he came in as a guy that Mizzou said could play both. He's had a lot of injury issues when it comes to baseball and just hasn't gotten to play for football. He sat behind Brady Cook. So who in 2022, that was kind of upsetting. 2023 was like, oh, all right. And then 24, he got hurt. So touching more on media days, this team, like I've said 100 times, this team really loves its depth. I think it has depth all over the field. I think it really, really, really needs to rely on that depth, and it needs to play fast, and it cannot be this sit back and let it come to you defense. It just can't be. You have to go attack. The only spot I think they think they're not great at is defensive tackle. I think at linebacker, they think they're golden with Trotter, Newsome, Khalil Jacobs, and Nick Rodriguez, who by all accounts had the best spring. And Newsome's a 6-year senior. Trotter was Big 12 all freshman. And Khalil Jacobs was a guy that they beat out Alabama because Kane Womack really wanted him and several others for. So I think it's a huge pickup. They like their depth at corner with Norwood and Pride and Hall and Deloach. They like it safety with Carnell and Catalan and Burks and Phillips. And they like the depth they have on defense. Is it Georgia? Is it Alabama? Is it that level of guy where 5-star? No, of course not. But it is a lineup I think they like to be able to really play, all out until you can't play anymore, and then they come back. The other place that also hopes, and special teams coach Eric Link, who still has a job, talked about that is like when you have a ton of talented guys and you have depth, those guys have to play. So they're going to play special teams. And when your special teams is good, that's good. Obviously, Mizzou special teams was not very good last year, unfortunately. Blake Craig is going to come back as the kicker. He did really good in the Music City Bowl. He had 2 50-yarders, but he needs to be a little more consistent. At Mizzou Media Days, basically, they talked about the wide receiver room. Kevin Coleman comes in from Mississippi State. He is proven at the SEC level. Beyond that, Mizzou, this is from Power Mizzou, 1,028 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 61 catches in their college careers. Most of that is Marquise Johnson, who I think a lot of people got upset when they saw his rating in the video game. He did not have a great year last year, and part of that was we just could not hit big plays. He's fast. He needs to be a guy though that you can trust on like a 2nd and 6 to pick up a first down. That's the next step. Jacob Peeler talked about the depth Mizzou has. Xavier Lloyd from Illinois State, the freshman, James Madison, to go with Josh Manning. Like, there's talent and there's depth. Like, there's a lot of names, but we don't know how good the depth is, how good these names are. Daniel Blood's also come back. Can he be a factor in this wide receiver room? Joshua Manning, I think, has to be your big body. Like, Kevin Coleman's going to do what Kevin Coleman does, and that's going to be a good slot receiver. They need a guy on the outside, and if Mizzou's going to have a good pass game this year, beyond just whoever plays quarterback playing well, obviously, it's going to have to come down to Josh Manning. He has to take a step and be the big physical wideout that they didn't have, a couple years ago. And then it's been Theo Weiss, and now you need something like that. So The other thing that they talked about at Mizzou Media Days is Drink doesn't really like playing freshmen unless it's like a Luther Burden or Dominic Lovett. Running back coach Curtis Looper talked a lot about Marquise Davis. He apparently weighs 215, which is big. Ahmad Hardy's going to be your primary back. Jamal Roberts is going to run your secondary stuff. Tavoris Jones, I guess he might fall behind a little bit. But that's going to be – there's a chance Davis gets on the field. He might be the only freshman that really sees the field when it comes to time for the regular season. The last thing they talked about was the offensive line shuffling. Obviously, Tollison's got a spot, and Caden Green's got a spot. So the biggest issue right now is left tackle. That's concerning. But Javen Richardson, Johnny Williams, and Jalen Early are all competing for snaps along the offensive line. Keegan Trost looks like he's got a spot. They need somebody to play a guard, but might be Dominic Deedens. So the theme that I kept seeing from a couple different places about Mizzou is they're really confident, and everybody's confident at this time of year. So that's not saying a whole bunch, but they're confident. They have depth, they have talent. They know what they need to figure out. If a couple things break their way, they could have another 10-win season. Personally, I'd be shocked if they fell to 5-7. 6-6 wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't be good. It'd be very disastrous. But again, I've picked them around 7-5, 8-4 all off season. So we'll see what happens. It's always good to get these guys in front of a mic. We are only a month away from the season. So a month from Thursday. So plenty to be excited about for Mizzou football coming up soon. Like and subscribe. This is the Voice of College Football, Missouri Tigers Live. You can follow me on Twitter at PsychOZ50. Why aren't you liking and subscribing? So it's time to preview this week's team. Old Dandy Vandy, our boys, the Vanderbilt Commodores, coming off a surprisingly – here's the thing that's crazy about Vandy last year. They went 7-6, and you look at who they beat. They beat Alabama. They won at Auburn. They gave LSU all they could handle. They went up 14-0. They beat Georgia Tech, who's a pretty good team. I think they should have beaten Mizzou. They beat Virginia Tech. They played a really, really good style of football and a good brand, and they still lost to Georgia State. They played Texas pretty tough. How tough was that? Did they have the ball at the end to win it? Okay, so Stowers scored with a few seconds left, but still, the only teams that really got them, Tennessee got them up pretty good. I know Vanderbilt went up pretty early in that game. I think 14-0, basically right away. And then it was 36-17 with 8 minutes left. So, Tennessee got them pretty good. They went to LSU, and they went to LSU. I think it was a night game. And, man, they played their tails off, and they lost by a touchdown. I think the only team that really got them was South Carolina. South Carolina kind of punked them 28-7. So, let me look at that LSU. Yeah, it was a touchdown. They scored it. They had the ball. Yeah, that's what I thought. So they were not far off from winning 8-9 games last year. They like I said, I think they should have beat Mizzou. And that all comes from, I think a lot of it has to do with their quarterback, man. Diego Pavia, I don't know. I hate the phrase, got that dog in him. But the dude's got dog, man. And if you look at his numbers, you wouldn't go crazy. You wouldn't be like, whoa, this dude is insane, And that even stretches to his time at New Mexico State. And he was one of the guys that got a pass so he could play more football this year, after playing JUCO. But, he completed 59% of his passes, 20 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. That's not amazing. Did run for 801 yards, only 4 yards a carry. That's crazy how much he ran. I'm gonna be honest. When I was looking at, I'm still amazed. I did not realize that's how much he ran. Combined for 28 touchdowns, and this is coming off a year at New Mexico State where they won 10 games, and he ran for 923 yards, and he threw for a little bit more yards and threw for a few more touchdowns. But I think you can accept the fact that, Conference USA, SEC, he kept the turnovers low. Like, you watch him play, and you're not like impressed by like his athleticism or his ball like placement or his accuracy, but then he just keeps making plays. There's a 3rd and 6, and you're like, all right, we got him bottled up. Like, let's go. And then he breaks 2 tackles behind the line of scrimmage and dives for a first down. And you're just like, oh my God. I'm sorry, like, it's part of it is because, and if there are any Vanderbilt fans watching this, I don't mean this as offense, but it is Vanderbilt. It's hard to hate Vanderbilt. Like, I'm sure it's a lot hard for teams, a lot of programs. Like, I doubt Alabama fans hate Mizzou, or LSU fans have a strong conviction, like, oh, Missouri. Like, it is what it is. I love Diego Pavia. I love that apologies, Mark, or anyone who's watching this. I love that he's a dick. I love it. You don't see it a lot in college sports now. I love that he's got a little bit of that Baker Mayfield, like, chip. But it's so much cooler because, like, he's not at Oklahoma. He's at freaking Vanderbilt. And he's just dragging Vanderbilt into these games. And they hired Tim Beck. And, man, like, Vanderbilt, Tim Beck came over from New Mexico State. And the offense they run with Pavia is so interesting because when you have programs like this, and, again, this is going to sound a little insulting, and I do apologize. But Vanderbilt, they don't have the talent that a lot of the SEC teams do. They don't have the facilities. They just don't have, and because of the academic standards, because Vanderbilt is one of the great schools in the United States, they just don't have the ability to really go out and get top level prospects. So for these kind of programs to be good, you have to run funky stuff. You have to be a team where if you don't take your scout seriously on, at practices on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or whatever, on your walkthroughs and all that, you're going to get in trouble. And that's what Vanderbilt does to teams. Now, they did slow down in the second half of the season. They put up 17 against LSU. The Tennessee game, they put up a quick 14, and then it kind of fell apart. South Carolina got them pretty good. Even Auburn held them to 17. Now, that was a win at Auburn. So Diego Pavia just continues to be beating Hugh Freeze. But no, man, like they were a pretty good team last year. And I think a lot of it is from their leader, man. Like, when you have a quarterback like him, dude, it's just crazy. He's so much fun. He's so much fun to watch. Like, if you don't like watching Diego Pavia, like, he's what's great about college sports because he's this no-name, 0-star, went to JUCO and then New Mexico State, and him and Jerry Kill led New Mexico State to, like, beyond amazing, like, for what New Mexico State is. And then he just kept getting better. And now he's at Vanderbilt. He's got another year. Tim Beck, with this offense, the thing is, because of their lack of talent out wide, they're not explosive. We'll get more into that in a second. But, yeah, like, I don't know how he does it, man. But, like, all Diego Pavia does is win games at places that are just not – they're not – like, New Mexico State does not win football games. They beat Liberty and Auburn. And now he's upsetting top 5 opponents on Vanderbilt. I believe he won a national championship in New Mexico Military Academy. Like, he just has it. He's a joy to watch, and I cannot wait to watch him for another year. Even against Mizzou, man, like, he's just a delight. Like, you can't hate Diego Pavia. Going back to talking a little bit more about Vanderbilt, you have Clark Lee in his 5th year. He's 16-33. 5-27 overall in the SEC. He's they won the school's 5th bowl game ever. First time they won 7 games. Fourth time this team's won 7 games since 1983. I believe 3 of them were James Franklin. I think 2011, 12, and 13. They won 7 games, so I don't think Derek Mason ever did it. here's what's on. Like we talk about Eli, like 3 straight 10-win seasons, never been done at the University of Missouri. In my notes here, I have Clark Lee can produce the 12th instance ever in 134 years of Vanderbilt football, 2 back-to-back 7-win seasons. That is crazy. That's just crazy. Steve Gregory is now their new DC. We'll see what happens there. They keep Jerry Kill on staff as like a consultant. That's really smart because Jerry Kill just wins football games at places that aren't supposed to. Like he was good at Minnesota. Health issues kind of took root there, and like PJ Fleck does not have the success at Minnesota he has if Jerry Kill isn't there before and doing what he does, which is just win freaking football games, man. Like he's just a good coach. He's kind of like Lance Leipold, where like I don't even especially because he's at Kansas. Like Lance Leipold's obviously not winning a natty at Kansas. I don't know if Lance Leipold will go anywhere and win a national championship, but you're just going to be – he's just a guy like if you need a damn good football coach, you get Lance Leipold, you get Jerry Kill. So keeping him around was pretty smart. They did go hard after linemen. They needed it because their offensive line was really, really bad last year. They brought in Bryce Henderson, who was second team All-Missouri Valley. Jordan White was at Liberty. He was pretty dang good at Liberty. Sterling Porcher. I'm sorry, I pulled this out real quick. He's had a ton of starts at Texas Tech and Middle Tennessee, and then they brought in Isaiah. It's not. It looks like Isaiah, but it's not. And I learned that listening to a Vanderbilt media thing today. He started 22 games at Arizona State and Oklahoma State. Listening to the Vanderbilt media guys, they're much more confident in the talent on offense. They bring back Eli Stowers, who is he's so good. He's getting some really high recognition in terms of NFL draft performance. He's a really talented kid. He can block. Let me pull up his stats from last year just alone. It's 49 catches, 638 yards, 5 touchdowns. They bring back Junior Sherrill, who was the second leading receiver, 29 catches, 411 yards, and 3 touchdowns. They really spread the ball around. And then I know they are hoping that they have some guys take steps. Joseph McVay is projected to be a starter. He only had 1 catch last year. And then I know they have the transfer from Mississippi State who they're hoping plays some big roles for them on offense. It's a good team. Like if you put Vanderbilt in the Big 12, like I legitimately think they have a chance to maybe compete for like a Big 12 title. But talking about like their offense, it was good. They stunk at running the ball. They were only 93rd in running efficiency, which is a little crazy to me. Diego Pavia did lead the team in rushing with 801 yards. Cedric Alexander was second with 586. He is back. They were not very explosive. They were not an explosive offense. They don't have the talent out wide to be an explosive offense. Like Stowers is good, but what Vanderbilt did and what your team like Vanderbilt is what you have to do. They were 18th in starting field possession because their special teams was legitimately awesome. 25th in the country in points per scoring opportunity, 22nd in red zone touchdown rate. This is all stats from Rock M Nation, right? Okay, got my doc up. 32nd in expected turnovers, first in actual turnovers. They found a way to get into scoring position, and they got 7 points, and they rarely turned it over. And to win football games, sometimes that's all you freaking need, man. Unlike Mizzou did a lot last year, where they were just turning into field goals. They were just putting in touchdowns, like Diego, and then just letting Diego Pavia be Diego Pavia. I just love Diego Pavia. Alexander only averaged 3.6 yards per carry. That is going to need to go up quite a bit. Eli Stowers has come back. Trey Richardson out of Washburn. The Washburn Ichabods, by the way. He he's going to start for them. He had nearly 1,000 yards receiving last year. He ran for 200 yards. 400 yards kick return. He's kind of, if you're Mizzou fans, he was kind of like D2 Jeremy Maclin. So we'll see how he steps up from D2, but they need him to be good because they need talent on the outside. They need to support Diego Pavia. And just because if they get good wide receiver play, man, like. Last year they were 59th in defensive SP plus. That's not elite or great. I combine the two words. One of the worst pass defenses in the entire all of college football, but they did a great job at limiting big plays. And they did that thing that teams. Okay, so I talk about this with Mizzou, and I think Mizzou sits back too much. They play the Vanderbilt doesn't have the talent Mizzou has athletically. They might have better coaching. I don't know. We'll see what Corey Batoon does this year. What Vanderbilt did a great job of last year was, look, these are college offenses. These are college kids. Mistakes do happen. If you avoid big plays, if you avoid giving up long runs, deep passes, and you make offenses grind out 9, 10, and they have to stay on play drives, and they have to stay on schedule, even the really good college offenses, that's going to be hard to do. Someone's going to drop a ball. A running back's going to misread a hole and get tackled after only a 1-yard gain. A quarterback's going to make a bad read. There's going to be a hold or a false start. And you can get teams behind the chains. You can force some good things to happen. Now, the issue Mizzou ran into is they were giving up way too many big plays. Vanderbilt, third highest returning production in the conference. So things like that are just going to be important. The continuity. They need to be able to make more big plays. I don't know why I didn't switch it over to my defense one. And I think there's a lot of equivalent to Mizzou there. I think Mizzou needs to make more big plays. And Vanderbilt does as well. I think the world of Tim Beck, not really Clark Lee. I think Clark Lee, Mizzou picked it up when Eli stopped calling the offense, and he gave the role to Kirby Moore, and Clark stopped calling defense. And now, I lied. He's still calling defense. They just brought in a new guy. They just brought in Steve Gregory to be co. Sorry, I'm misreading my own notes. I do that often. One of the things they do really well is hey, it's Vanderbilt. Here's the thing about Vandy, man. You lose. It doesn't matter who you are. Let's look at their schedule. How many of these teams do you think expect to beat Vanderbilt? South Carolina, yes. Bama, yes. LSU, yes. Mizzou, yes. Texas, yes. Auburn, should. And Tennessee. Kentucky, that's 7 SEC games where Vanderbilt's going to be an underdog. And if you're one of those teams, and now, I felt it last year, and we didn't know when Mizzou played them, they just come off the loss to Georgia Tech or Georgia State. But, I felt it too. I'm this team just lost to Georgia State, and you're playing footsies with them. It's just not, you feel that pressure of, oh my God, we cannot lose to Vanderbilt. We just can't. And then you don't. But Alabama did. And you feel it, man. You feel that pressure, even as a fan. So going into the season, we're looking at the schedule for old Dandy Vandy. We'll see what Virginia Tech looks like. Brent Pry is another year. I don't know why. I almost said Brent Key, but he's at Georgia Tech. So we'll see what happens there. But they have a chance, man. Like they got Charleston Southern, Virginia Tech, Georgia State, Utah State. That's 4 wins. That should be 4 wins. They get Kentucky at home. The issue with Vanderbilt, a team like Vanderbilt, is you can't guarantee wins over anybody. Like Mizzou, I can say should beat UMass. Like I pick Vanderbilt to beat UMass too. Don't get me wrong, but they did lose to Georgia State last year. But Vanderbilt should beat Charleston Southern. They should beat Georgia State. They did lose to Georgia State after. Should beat Utah State, and they should beat Kentucky at home. That's 4 wins. They have a real shot, I think, at beating Virginia Tech, beating LSU at home, beating Missouri at home, beating Auburn for a millionth time in a row. It feels like, or Biavia beating Hugh Freeze. So what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I see as 8 winnable games. 4 of them you really, really should win. And then you got winnable home games against Auburn, Mizzou, LSU, and then you winnable road game. I say 4 games you should win. And then Auburn, Mizzou, LSU, Utah State, Georgia State, Virginia Tech. Like, there's a path to 7 wins here in the regular season. There's a path to 8 wins. You lose at Tennessee, you lose at Texas, you lose at Alabama, and you lose at South Carolina, and you can win the rest of those games. I would predict it to happen. I would predict Vanderbilt to fall closer to 6-6. Just kind of eyeballing it. I think they will go through the non-con undefeated. I think they'll lose to South Carolina. I think they'll lose to Bama. I think they'll beat Kentucky and Auburn at home. So that puts them at 6-6. So, but getting into then into the matchup, we'll start with talking about last year's game, Mizzou Vanderbilt. Look, it was disastrous. Mizzou was coming off a really crummy performance against Boston College. Vanderbilt had just lost to Georgia State, and you could not escape them. You were down 13-10 at half. It was a back and forth. You gave up a 4-yard run in the third quarter. Luther Burden was able to kind of save your soul. They did outgain Vanderbilt 442 to 324. Diego Pavia was 14 for 23 for 178, 2 touchdowns. He wasn't great, but 17 carries for 84 yards. Brady Cook, 23 of 37. He threw for 2 touchdowns, 226. Luther Burden, one of his bigger games of the year. And then Nate Noel, 24 carries, 199 yards. Really saved Mizzou's bacon that day. They outgained them. They outrushed them. They avoided turnovers and even avoided penalties. What killed Mizzou was the big play to start the game, and they just could not get Pavia off the field, and it almost cost them. This year, look, I'm not trying to be rude, and you would rather play at home than on the road, but no one is scared of going to Vanderbilt Stadium. Again, I don't like taking pot shots at my own team, but again, I'm sure like Alabama's not looking at Faurot Field like, oh God, that's going to be one of our tougher environments when they got to go to Georgia. It's just one of those things, but like you should not be scared of going to Vanderbilt. But this is going to be a tough game, man. Like you're going to have 2 quarterbacks, presumably. I still think Bo's going to be the quarterback for Mizzou, who love to run the football. You have 2 coaches and 2 coaching staffs that love to run the football. I think Vanderbilt's run game is a little more creative because it has to be. They don't just have the pure talent that Mizzou does, and I think Tim Beck is honestly, like if they get to a bowl game, Tim Beck, I doubt he'll get like a head coaching job, but man, like there should be some teams that really, really look at hiring him to be their offense. Like some upper echelon teams should really, really look at hiring. He's just super creative. Maybe he fits better at a school like Vanderbilt, but his run spread option is just insane. I think for Vanderbilt to have a really good season, it needs to be able to be more explosive in its pass game. But we'll see. They won 7 games last year. It's so hard to win games at Vanderbilt, man. Like the only coach that's really done it consistently was James Franklin, and he's we can talk all we want about James Franklin, but he is the head coach at Penn State and did just coach in a national semifinal. Again, the context matters there. I understand that. But James Franklin is a really good football coach. He is. And he's the only one that's been able to have success at Vanderbilt. And if Clark Lea can do it again, man, like you're going to see Clark Lea get mentioned for some bigger jobs. Maybe not Penn State, but if they win 7 games again, especially as they fall further and further behind and more teams get more money, I would not be shocked if Vandy isn't able to pony up. And then maybe you just hire Tim Beck. But I'm interested to see Vandy in 2026 when they lose Diego Pavia, just because I do think like some of this is they just have a bulldog at quarterback, man. And who's hard to tackle, hard to press. I love him. Vanderbilt, they got the biggest win. Maybe, I mean, what is this that's the biggest program win since when? Beating Alabama last year. I just remember watching that game, and now I'm just kind of gushing about. But I just remember watching that game, being like this is fun. They're not going to do it, but it's fun, And I was still doing Bama stuff. They were up 13-0. I don't think I really believed they could do it until they went up 40-28, and then I was like, and that was with 5 minutes left, and I was like, oh my god! And Diego Pavia was just incredible, 16-20 for 252 and 2 touchdowns. They limited the Bama run game. They outgained them 418 to 394. Pavia also ran for 56 yards on 20 carries. Like neither team could really run the ball that well. I mean, Bama was 21 for 84, and Vanderbilt was 54 for 166. Oh my God, that's hilariously not good. But they still won, and they put up 40 points. I think Mizzou wins this game. I think it's a dogfight, though. I have my little projection sheet. Again, I don't have like a model or anything. I just kind of write and I just kind of think through these games. I take a minute, I read through some stuff. I think Mizzou wins it like 24-20, which I think the same score is for Auburn. So, like 23-17. Like it's going to be a gross, nail-biting football game if you're a Mizzou fan. I don't think under Eli, Mizzou is right now in a spot where they're just going to be killing teams that have the fight that Vanderbilt does. Mississippi State right now, we'll see what Mississippi State looks like this year. Mississippi State last year just didn't have that same fight. Arkansas had some fight, but I just don't think Mizzou is at a point where they're just like, if Vanderbilt shows up to play, which they will because they have Diego Pavia, you're not going to be able to just waltz in there and kill them. Like you're going to have to play football. So if I had, like I said, for prediction wise, I do have Vanderbilt at 6-6, another bowl game, which, hey man, like that's nothing to snivel at for our friends down in Nashville. Like that's a really good mark for them. I think missing a bowl game would be disastrous. I could see it happening. Obviously, like there is a chance you lose that Virginia Tech game, you lose the South Carolina game, you got Bama on the road, and then you go into your bye week at 3-3 with 7 SEC games or 6 SEC games staring at you, and LSU, LSU team that we all think is going to be pretty good this year. You got Mizzou, you go to Texas, who we all think is going to be great. You got Auburn, you got Kentucky. Like, there's a real chance, man. Like they're 3-6 staring at Auburn, Kentucky, at Tennessee. But there's also, I think, a real chance that at that juncture they're 4-2. And if you can get to the bye week, if you're Vanderbilt and you get into the bye week at 4-2, and you beat LSU, and now you're 5-2, and you got Mizzou. It's a winnable game against Mizzou. That's 6 wins. You got Tech, like the moment that Virginia Tech game is huge. Is if you win that game, again, really, really good chance you're 4-2 going into the bye week, and then you got winnable home games against LSU and Missouri. You've got, at this point, winnable home games. We could get to the regular season and Mizzou stinks, or LSU's amazing, or Mizzou's amazing. We could get there. It happens. And then you go to Texas at 6-2 or 5-3, and then you have a couple winnable games to get to bowl eligibility. Like there's a path to 7-8 wins here. What was crazy last year was if you looked at Vanderbilt's schedule, man, like if they had just beaten Georgia State and beaten Mizzou like they should have, like I think they outplayed Mizzou. I know the numbers don't really reflect it. Just trust me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They would have been 7-0 going into Texas. Like they very real chance of that. And then they beat Auburn. You're 8-1 going and playing South Carolina. Like, and then you have a final 3 games, and there's you win. Like there was what's disappointing about Vanderbilt a little bit last year too is like they were a couple plays away from 8-9 win. They were a couple plays away from like not being in the playoffs, but like being in that like is Vanderbilt? Yeah, could they? They kind of faded down the stretch. They weren't going to beat LSU. They weren't going to beat South Carolina. They weren't going to beat Tennessee. So they probably ended up at best 8-4. But man, like if they had just taken care of business against Georgia State and not and finished off Mizzou, man, they would have been 7-1, which is crazy. But opportunity for them on the table this year to obviously make another bowl game. I know Diego Pavia is talking crazy, but we want to complete for the playoff. Love that about him. So this is Missouri Tigers Live, episode 34. Thank you all for tuning in. Next week, we will be back. I think next week is Texas A&M. Let me look. My computer. How do I even get a new computer and it still stinks? I love that I bought a mic and then it. Okay, yeah. So next week's Texas A&M, second to last home game of the year, and then Mississippi State, OU, and Arkansas. I don't know what that sound was. Thank you guys all for being here. Like and subscribe, guys. Join the Voice of College Football family and networks. I am Zach Armilius. Thank you guys so much for being here. You can follow Mark at the Voice of Mark Rogers at the Voice of College Football. Mark knows what he's talking about. He's one of the smartest people I've ever talked to about this silly little sport that we all love for some reason or another. Even though it drives us nuts. I love my weekends being determined by a bunch of 19-year-olds. It's the best. There's a 28-year-old, soon to be 29-year-old. So thank you guys all for being here. Next week we'll be back to preview. We'll have some practice notes from the local media. We'll have some things to talk about. I'll have some video, and we'll preview Texas A&M and what is going to be a huge revenge game for Mizzou. Thank you guys all for being here. MIZ. I'll see you next week.